and this morning's theme is a panel on Christian business leadership. And I asked 3 people who all said yes to this, and I'm thankful to have them with us this morning. So we have here Mr. Drew Vogel, and then Miss Amy Eben, and then Mr. James Dykstra. Let's welcome them and talk with them a little bit about business leadership. And so one of the first things that I'm going to ask them is kind of an extended introduction of themselves, and they can take it whenever order they want, just pass the microphone back and forth. But just tell us about your business, where you work, the role that you serve there, and then maybe, part B, how you developed a passion for that, or where that was birthed in your life. So what you do and how that passion began. We'll go ladies first, Amy. I'm sure you love that. You made the mistake of making eye contact with me, and that's don't do that one ever again.
Yeah, that's good. My name is Amy Eben, and I am part owner of the Travel Advantage in Sioux Center. And we have 3 different entities. We do leisure travel for anybody who's doing honeymoons, couples, vacations, things like that. Then we do corporate travel for all the businesses. And then we also have a group department, and we do humanitarian travel for colleges across the United States for that. So that's kind of what we do. I would say I grew up traveling. I probably would never have guessed graduating from Northwestern, though I never thought about a career in travel. But when I graduated, I got offered the job and took it, and really a mama's baby. It was close to home, so I was like, yay, this is great. And in all truth, it was going to be my stepping stone job until I found something else, but God had other plans. Within the first month, my coworkers became my family, and I really found my true passion, which was customer service. And so it didn't need to be necessarily in the travel field, but 21 years later, here I still am and loving what I do. So it's been good.
Cool. And while you pass that maybe to James, I'll just add one moderator comment that was really cool. It's about a month ago. Someone posted on Facebook. This is one of my kind of progressive East Coast friends. He says, I don't love everything about the RCA, but one thing I'm always grateful for is the Travel Advantage and how well they take care of RCA travel. And a couple of my conservative friends agreed with that. So if there's one thing people in the RCA can agree on, it's that Amy Eben's company does a fantastic job helping with denominational travel. So I tagged her on that conversation, which was pretty cool. James.
Talk, right? Yeah. Okay. James Dykstra. I guess I'll start from when I was in college. I went to Dordt College and graduated with an accounting degree. And I kind of had a passion for business early on, growing up in a small business. And so I went for accounting because I wanted to understand more of how numbers worked and how the financial side of things worked. And when I graduated from college, I ended up in Garden City, Kansas with my wife, and worked for an accounting firm. And after a year after the accounting firm, I was let go, and I went to work for an oil and gas exploration company. And what it ended up being, I ended up being a personal accountant to president of the company. And he ended up owning several large entities, and I spent about 5 years under his wing, studying business and understanding how business worked. And as life went on, I was studying for the CPA, and I ended up quitting after I spent a lot of money to get there, to end up deciding to go out on my own and buying my own first company. And I did that back in 2014. I bought a personality assessment company, which nobody usually knows what that is other than it's a disc profile. And we go around the country selling trainings of how to help people communicate better with one another by identifying what kind of personality you are, and then how you want to be talked to versus how I would talk to Amy or how I talk to Drew. And so my passion is in business, and how do you take a business, a smaller business, and how do you grow it into a larger organization. And as time has gone on, I've been there for I've been with that company now for 5 years. I actually ended up partnering with my previous boss, and I still call him boss to this day. And yeah, life has been a lot of fun, and that's where my passion started from, is really learning all kinds of different businesses, and knowing just one was not as much fun as getting to know multiple ones and why they work the way they do. So, and that's kind of where my passion still is to this day.
Cool.
Did I answer all the questions?
Yeah. And you also have a little company in Alton as well, too,
Yeah.
correct? Yep.
Yep, that's my second venture, I guess, and it's called Dwellings Decor. It's a flooring store, and we're getting to learn a little bit about how flooring works and all that, and understanding that. And my goal is never to get into the day-to-day operations. It's always to stay above, because that's where, as my passion has lied, is to grow it. So my goal is always to find people, good people, and help them work together to help achieve a goal, and identifying that goal, and that's what the leader's job is to point the boat and the ship in the right direction and help people get to where we all want to go. So
Cool. Thanks, James.
Thanks. Well, I grew up here in Orange City and have been around a paint business since as early as I can remember. And all my part-time jobs through junior high, high school, and college, summer jobs were always in and around the paint job, whether it was in a paint company, whether it was a paint store or making paint or loading trucks or whatever. But I always, I think, denied that I wanted to be in it after I got out of college. And even though even my friends always talked and expected me to, I think I resisted that because I wanted to do my own thing. And even in my last semester of college, I was interviewing, looking for other things, and then came into a conversation with my dad, who's been a mentor through all my work. And he challenged me a little bit. Interestingly, we never had a serious conversation about it before. He just kind of let me be, and ultimately encouraged me to interview with my uncles. And Dad never offered me a job, so I didn't know if he was serious about what he was talking about or not. But my Uncle Marv did, and so I went to work. I ultimately, my Uncle Marv was a good salesman, and he sold me on the idea of coming to work for the company. He was my first boss and taught me a lot. And I started in sales, living in Des Moines. Later on, moved to Omaha and had a taste of managing people and a little distribution warehouse we had there. Gene and I met and married, and we moved to Minneapolis, where we managed a manufacturing plant that we had acquired, and then later moved to Denver after another acquisition and got involved with managing stores and a little larger sales group. And then when Dad started talking about retirement or semi-retirement, he and my uncles asked if we would move back to Orange City, and we've been here now for 32 years and in a little more of a leadership position. I think my interest was in the paint business from early on, but I think my passion about it really has grown as the years have gone by, just because of seeing business as truly a mission during the week. We spend most of our waking hours during the week in our lives, really, at work, and it's where we have the most opportunity to serve. It's just a matter of how we focus on that.
Well, that's a great segue into the next question. We'll just leave the microphone right in your hand, Drew, because it's already there. And you led into it by talking about your work as a ministry. So the way I worded the question to you originally is, in what ways do you see your work as something that God may be interested in and perhaps advances what Jesus came to earth to do, or participate in some way in his kingdom. So sort of, what are the connections spiritually between the Bible story and redemption and the work that each of you do day to day?
We're called to love the Lord, but equally, similarly, love our neighbor, love our fellow man, and to serve them. And I think we can do that in a lot of different ways. And I really believe that we serve in our company. We serve by creating products and helping our customers beautify their homes, protect the things that they invest in, and help in being successful in their goals as they perhaps manufacture a product and want to beautify it or protect it, or for those that use our products in and around their home. So it furthers the objectives and the success and the goals of others as they endeavor to do. But it also is an opportunity. It's a place where employees gather and become a team and have fellowship and have kind of a joy and a sense of fulfillment of using their gifts and talents in a productive way. And then hopefully as we do that business, demonstrate a way of doing it that speaks to others, and hopefully an example. And we like to talk about that, how we do that as an organization. You can probably tell me who said it. It seems like it was I've heard it attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. I don't know if that's accurate, but the quote was, preach the gospel often, and when you have to, use words. I think in our work and how we conduct ourselves, we can do a lot of things without having to say words.
Cool. There's a lot in the Bible about journeys and travel. How do you see your work affecting that, Amy?
Well, I'll be honest and say I struggled with that at the beginning of my career because everybody wants to make a difference, right? And so how is travel making a difference? And several years ago, it was actually an RCA pastor said to me, thank you for partnering in our mission. Without you getting us to our destination, we wouldn't be able to do the work God has called us to do. And that's just really stuck with me since he said that, and I pass it on to my staff, and that's how we do our work at this point. We're partnering and helping. We're doing what we're called to do so that others can do what they're called to do. But along with that, I think God has created this huge, beautiful world full of diversity, and so I think we're allowing people to enjoy what God has created for us and bringing families together. So that may just be a simple answer, but
It's a great one.
I think that's really important in the world we live in today.
Yeah, I'll go off that diversity comment you made. At Resources, one of our purposes is we worked pretty hard on developing what our purpose was at Resources, and our purpose that we came up with as a team was to build positive relationships. And so as we continue to do our trainings, as we continue to look for other training materials to bring into the organization, the idea that is behind our team and our organization is to figure out ways that we can help build better positive relationships. And it's a pretty lofty feat, we know that, but the tools that we sell, that's what we're trying to do, is to build communication, which then builds better relationships. And so going to how to work with your fellow man better, how to engage in conversations with people, how to approach people, that's a lot of what we do. So from a biblical perspective, you talk about, it's the old proverb, treat others like you would like to be treated. In our organization, we kind of actually extended that to say treat people the way they want to be treated. because not everyone wants to be approached the same way. And so that's how we kind of approach our business and how we approach our relationships. And so that's kind of from the training world, from a flooring construction world. We're trying to put down protective layers on your floors, giving you better ways to do it. And we're in a lot of people's homes, and we have a lot of conversations about what people like and what they want to do. And so again, it comes back to relationships, and that's really what business is becoming more and more. So how do you build a relationship? How do you make yourself different? And being a Christian by itself makes you different in this world.
That's cool. Hey, James, you had talked a little bit about calling someone else boss, and in different ways, all three of you probably answer to that title now. And I just wondered, are there any kind of non-negotiables that you have in caring for your employees? So James, you just gave us a really cool rundown on what relationships are like at work. Is there some values that you hold yourself to in terms of the care of the people who are in your employ?
Yeah, one of the biggest non-negotiables that I have with every employee, whether they're in upper management, middle management, great customer, great vendor, is trust. And with me, if I can't trust you, there's a hard line of keeping you employed. I always want to continue to try to manage that relationship after. One of the questions will come later too is challenging, but is I always want to be able to trust you, because if I don't trust you, then there's really no purpose for you in the organization, because I can't trust you to make the right decision anymore. And so I always tell people, you can lose me money, you can lose a client, you can have a disagreement, but at the end of the day, we have to have trust. And it's the foundation principle of a relationship too. So that's probably my biggest non-negotiable is trust. And once it's broken, it's really hard to come back out of it. Not saying you can't, but it takes a long time.
And I'm expecting that they could and should say the same thing about you. I need to be able to trust James, and if I don't, there's been some sort of a violation of that covenant of faithfulness to one another as well.
Yeah, one of the things we do with our employees is we sit them down and we say, where do you want to go? What is your dreams? What is your purpose in life? What are you trying to achieve? And whether it's with us or with another organization, or they want to use us as a stepping stone to another organization, we want to work with them to get them there, because the last thing I want as an owner and the last thing I want as a person is to be disengaged or not interested in my work. I want my life to have purpose. And so if you're looking to go from our company in 5 years to a larger company, or go out on your own or do something, we'd rather partner with you and work with them as they go through that journey, rather than trying to weave and dodge. And that's why we try to build on trust. Is when I was an employee, that was one of the things I did, is I actually went to my boss and I said, well, I'm going to be looking to go purchase my own company now. And I said that while I was employed, and I didn't have it picked out. I didn't know where I was going. But I had enough trust with him to know that I wasn't going to get terminated the next day. And so that's one of the things I do with each one of my employees is, if you want to be a long-term employee, great. If you want to be a short-term employee, great. Let's try to mutually benefit from it and go through it.
Thanks. What can Travel Advantage employees expect from Amy?
Excuse me, sorry. I think the most important thing for me is, again, we are a family in my office. And so I need each and every employee to know that they're appreciated every second of every day, and that they are important. And so I think for me, that's a non-negotiable, whether that's cleaning off their, windshields of snow in the winter, just writing a little thank you note, or recognizing, something that they did that stood out. That is just the most important thing for me in my office. And I also think when your employees feel appreciated, then they're going to offer better service to your customers. So, like I said, I know customer service is huge and your client is number one, but I think making your employees number one achieves that goal of making your customers number one.
Cool.
I think you guys have covered the essence of it. I think trust, integrity, and a sense of mutual goal or mission. If we can't, as employer and employee, as team members, agree on what our purpose is, why we come to work every day, and to be able to do that with honesty, integrity, and the development of mutual trust, or have that as a goal or an objective, then there's something that isn't aligned. At the same time, we realize our company's been in existence for 93 years. I don't think there's been one day where we've really achieved that in perfection or 100% of our goal, but leaning toward that all the time with those principles.
Drew, I'll ask this one to you first. This is one I'm really the most curious about of all these questions is, what is your understanding as a Christian of profit? And are there ways that you as a Christian understand the profit that you need to make to stay in business in a way that might be different from someone who wasn't a Christian and how they think about profit? Is there a theology of profit in business?
Theology and profit. Profit's been in my lifetime, in my career, it was a hard thing to begin to talk to employees about. In our culture, I think, at least as I grew up, profit was oftentimes referred to as kind of a dirty word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to talk in business about selling more, about expense control, and about what's the right price, what's the right gross margin, if you will. But to talk about that bottom line, I was always afraid anytime I talked about it, it would sound like greed. And so in my early part of my career, I just avoided it. And we as a company, we didn't talk about it very much. And then gradually, I think I learned to look at it a little differently, in some ways out of necessity, because we went through some years where there was very little. And you start to think, what would life be like that for our business if that went on too many years in a row? Mm-hmm. And I began to look at it differently, and I find myself in employee groups using the analogy of profit as oxygen, and drawing the parallel as individuals, when we wake up in the morning, our goal is not necessarily for the day to breathe, but we're pretty interested that we are breathing and we're taking in oxygen, because we can't do very much in kingdom work if we're not healthy. Mm-hmm. And if we're not taking in oxygen. And for a business, profit really is the oxygen for business. It provides stability, sustainability, provides the ability to reinvest, and to reach a little further in employee welfare or in programs for the customer, and including the ability to look outside of the business in a sense of stewardship for those who are less privileged or in need. So I'm a lot more comfortable, in fact, a lot more excited, motivated to talk about why profit is good. But your question is kind of an interesting one when you talk about the believer or the non-believer and profit. And in my experience, I've seen oftentimes non-believers with a healthier approach to profit sometimes than believers. Just because we're believers doesn't always mean that we get it right. And as a believer, there are times when I feel that myself. Okay, we've had a profitable year. How much temptation is there to use part of that profit in a less than appropriate way? And yet I look at not across the street, but I look at folks who I think probably are not believers, and I think they're doing maybe a more admirable job. And so I think being a believer gives us a much stronger foundation and perspective, and we have less excuse to mess that up. But that doesn't mean we don't.
Amy or James, anything to add to that question on profit? Or?
Profit is good.
Profit is good.
I'm just kidding.
You're supposed to drop it when you're done, I think.
This is going to sound very simplistic, but I think in a customer service business especially, when you are making profits, it's indicative of the trust maybe that you've earned from your clientele. And so, like I said, very simplistic, but that is how I look at it. And so, again, pat your employees on the back, for being able to earn that. But like Drew said, just being able to reinvest in the business, being able to give back to employees, being able to support different things in the community. So it's, it's great to be able to do that.
It's something like a thermometer rather than a thermostat. You don't necessarily are not in business simply to make profit, but when you're making profit, it's an indication that things are maybe in the right direction. James, anything to add to the profit question?
The only thing I think I'd probably add is when I look at profit, Drew talks about it as oxygen. I go more into the lines of cash flow. I talk a lot more about cash flow in the company, but cash flow is a part of profitability. But cash flow, as I always talked about, is the blood source of your organization. Without it, your organization's going to close. So without profit, you're basically going to end up either losing the company or shutting it down because the company doesn't work without the profit in the system we have today. And so I kind of reference the Joseph analogy of the 7 years of grain that he stored and saved up versus the 7 years of drought. And when you have profitable years and good years, it's what you do with that, of how you look to the future, how you take care of your community, take care of your employees. And so, yeah, it's kind of along the lines of what you guys had to say, but it's also each person has their way of security of what God's asking them to store back for those future years, because those droughts will come.
So this next question could be, you could take a lot of time on it, but we got about 8 minutes left for these last two questions. So maybe just in a kind of the top couple lines on the biggest challenge you're presently facing as a Christian business leader. And James, maybe you can start, and we'll let Amy answer the last one first. So what is your biggest challenge right now in business, and maybe one thing you're attacking it with?
I'm not currently facing the biggest one right now. The biggest one I've ever faced, and I faced it in both acquisitions, is when you have a good long-term employee or an employee that's been there a long time and they're just not the right fit for the job. And having to ask them to leave or ask them to go find something else to do because it's not working. It's always hard. It's never fun for the employer. It's never fun for the employee that wants to stay. It's always a hard thing to manage. Cool. And I don't think it's going to change.
Right. It's not a matter of that it was an ethical error or even a mistake. It's just a fit issue, and those are hard to communicate sometimes. That's good. James?
My biggest challenge is being asked to sit on the Sunday school panel. It'll be over in 7 minutes. So that's good. Yeah, 5 in fact. So I think for me, and probably my partners would say the same thing, it's working in the business and then not having time to work on the business. So we have some really great goals that look good on paper, but then, taking out the commas and figuring out how to accomplish, to find the time basically to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So I think that's probably one of the biggest issues.
I think I associate the biggest challenge with the biggest joy and the biggest heartache, and I think James touched on it. For me, it's been finding the mesh between the team members' God-given gifts, skills, and the experience they bring, and meshing that as close as possible with a need in the organization that needs to be filled. And when you find that fit, that's the greatest joy, and just seeing that happen and celebrating it. But when it doesn't fit, and you try different fits, and for one reason or another it just doesn't work, that's the biggest heartache. When you ultimately have to come to the decision, it's just not going to work, and you have to say goodbye. And that's been the worst day.
Amy, you can lead us off in the last question. What would be your words of encouragement to a young person, middle school, high school, college, who kind of aspires to do what you do, to be a business leader? And if you want, even tag on, a lot of times I think about this as man's world, but you're a fantastic, strong female leader. What advice would you have, maybe even to a young woman who wants to be a business leader but has a faith in Jesus Christ that is crucial to their walk?
I'm going to say two things. Am
Cool.
I allowed? Okay. One, a couple of years ago, actually, I was asked to be part of a leadership group, and I've had to think about it at first, but it has been such a blessing to me. And so it's 12 individuals. We get together once a month. We encourage each other, ask questions, bounce ideas off each other. And every single month I go back to the office with something positive that I can, integrate into the Travel Advantage. So that would be one piece of advice. Surround yourself with other godly leaders that you can ask questions, because there's no right answer, but just getting Christian guidance is huge. So that'd be my first. And my second is offer yourself grace. We all want to be perfect, and we want to be perfect for our customers and for our employees, but it's not possible. And so I think just offering yourself grace when you mess up, doing the best you can to right the wrong, and then asking yourself what you learned from that, not dwelling on it, moving on, and doing better the next time. So my two pieces of advice.
First piece of advice I'd give somebody is to fail, and fail often. It sounds counterintuitive when you're talking profit and business, but to be innovative, to be moving forward, to be a differentiator, to be a difference maker, you have to try something new. And business is all about trying something new. And so I would say try it, and you will fail. It's not a matter of if, it's usually a matter of when and which opportunity will fail. But I've failed on several opportunities, but without those failures, I wouldn't have learned how to get to where I'm at. So I would say don't be afraid to fail.
I think what came to my mind when I heard that question was to make sure that you know how to be a follower if you aspire to be a leader, and ask yourself how good you are at following and being part of a team. And I think that gives the opportunity, the capacity to empathize with what you're trying to achieve and putting team together. If you can't have a taste of that, or have the capacity to be part of a team and follow, I think it just limits you in what you can do as you try to lead a group to try to accomplish an end. So.
Awesome. Hey, let's say thank you to these guys for very much. Beautiful. We have 3 minutes left before I think the bell will ring for the second time. Are there any questions that you have that you'd like to pose to one of our panelists in particular, or to throw out generally?
Probably mainly Drew, but for all of you. In the midst of, especially after hearing the sermon today, in the midst of when you go through the tough years, because everybody will, how you struggle with trying not to let the cares of this world crowd out the Word, as you're having to work harder. At least when it goes bad, you feel like you're responsible and you've got to do more and more. And at that time, it can be easy for the cares of the world to get, overwhelmed. How do you deal with that when you've had those type of years?
So I'll just repeat the question for those who are listening to the podcast. Dave's question is, when the cares of the world come in, how do you navigate your spiritual walk when you have to work harder to keep things on the rails? And how do you kind of walk that line of being a business person and a follower of Jesus at the same time when there may be maybe a little bit pulling apart?
Thanks, Dave.
Drew's like, when's that bell going to ring? When's that bell?
When you walked in, I knew there might be a moment like that. I think just reminding yourself of the really important things, and then being able to have somebody to talk to about it and keep yourself rooted. For me, that's been Jean. A lot of times, more than she probably realizes, or another mentor. But that's the time to tap into that. And then I think James talked about the years of plenty and the years of famine, and I think you just need to kind of store up a little bit of resolve that when those times come, that you fall on those that you can depend on and talk to, and of course not forget to go to the altar and talk to your high priest. But, so those are the things that come to my mind.
I would agree with Drew, just having someone to talk to and again keep you grounded. And I'm very fortunate. Both of my partners are wonderful Christian women, and we talk about our blessings from God all the time. And so I think just relying on them, and the great news is they're in it as well, so they understand. And I think just having someone to bounce ideas off, like I said, keep you grounded is good.
I would say mentors, others in the area that you can partner with that are in the same predicaments that you are, as employee relationships, or in those leadership positions, to talk and to address your actual concerns with them, being real with them. And then, it's trying to keep that positive attitude, because I can't really speak to too many crashes because I'm too young, but the 2008 crash was pretty rough on college graduate, which is what I was, which is why we were also in Garden City, Kansas, which was meant to be. But relying on God and knowing that He's going to take care of you. And every time I've relied on Him, it's always turned out better than what I would have dreamt it to be. So that's probably.
And I'll just. I have a lot to commend about all these guys. Let me commend James. He's navigated that with Arabella. His youngest daughter has gone through a lot of health issues, and there's been a lot of days he's been in the hospital, and I'm thinking he's probably wanting to be at work, but the phone is away and off, and he's focusing on this little baby in a NICU crib and bubble, and just caring for her. So that I know that all of you have had those issues. I've seen James more than the other two, but it's been a blessing to see that witness as well. So next week, we have the opportunity to hear from Michelle and Emily, and Michelle's making eye contact with me now, and they have this fantastic talk that they're preparing from their work in hospice and caring for people at the end of life. And I thought about this when I thought about a woman named Bronnie Ware, I think was from Australia, and she wrote a book all about what people are thinking at the end of their lives. Regrets that they have, the things that they truly celebrate, the questions that they're still asking. And I thought that was just fascinating, because in some sense, we should be paying attention to that. What do people wish they hadn't done? What do they wish they'd done more of? And so these two wonderful ladies have cared for many people as they've approached the end of their lives, and they'll be sharing with us same time, same place next Sunday. Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this time. Thank you for Drew and Amy and James for their wonderful words of wisdom and witness for us today. We pray that you would continue to help their endeavors to flourish and thrive, And we pray, Lord, as Dave mentioned, that there would be fruitfulness, even when the thorns of life are kind of attacking them or choking them out. Please help them to continue to bear fruit that is kingdom-minded. Be with us all, Lord, on our homeward way, and help us to have a wonderful week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Go in peace.